Heh. Well, well, well. Greetings to the forgotten, the underestimated, the misunderstood, to the ones they laughed at, the ones they mocked, ignored, labeled weak, too much, too little, too loud, too quiet, the ones they thought were jokes. Guess what? They were right about one thing. You were the punchline until you rewrote the script and made them choke on it. You ever notice how people only respect you after you stop caring about their damn approval? Funny, huh? They clap when you're down bad, when your life's in pieces, when you're trying to figure it out. But the second you make that final move, that power play they didn't see coming, now they can't breathe. They were laughing, cackling like hyenas, running their mouths in group chats, at parties, at tables you weren't invited to. You see them? They'll never make it. They're lost, a mess, clueless. And maybe they were right, for a minute. Because, yeah, you were drowning. You were broken. You were walking around bleeding in silence while pretending everything's okay. But you know what they never saw? You were calculating quietly. You were learning the terrain, bleeding in the shadows, smiling through clenched teeth. They didn't know pain was building your spine back stronger. You weren't falling apart. You were loading. And then it happened. That last move. You didn't shout. You didn't announce it. You didn't throw a tantrum or ask for validation. You made one precise, cold, unexpected move. And it hit like a hammer to the chest. Suddenly, their lungs forgot how to breathe. The same ones who laughed couldn't speak. The same ones who knew you'd never make it couldn't even look you in the eye. Because your success, your rise, your comeback, it wasn't flashy, it wasn't desperate, it was surgical, it was cold, clean, calm. And that's what made it deadly. You see, people don't fear loud, they fear calculated. They fear someone who smiles after the storm, not someone screaming in it. You became the storm, and they're just soaked in the consequences. They never expected you to outgrow your trauma, to weaponize your silence, to sharpen your isolation into focus, to turn rejection into fuel, to turn your rock bottom into a launch pad. You made pain your trainer, loneliness your mentor, failure your blueprint. You stopped seeking applause from people who couldn't even clap for themselves. Let's be real. They never wanted you to win. They liked you broken, predictable, contained. Because if you rose, if you healed, if you started playing chess instead of reacting to every damn insult, then they'd have to deal with what you really are. Uncontrollable. You flipped the board, burned the rule book, moved in silence while they laughed out loud, and now their whole identity is cracking. They defined themselves by your downfall. Your failure made them feel tall, but you rose anyway. And now they've got nothing to stand on but their own insecurity. That's why they can't breathe. They don't hate your success. They hate that it came without them. They hate that you didn't need their approval, their love, their help, that you built something real, while they chased likes and gossip. They hate that you didn't beg, you didn't explain, you just evolved. That one move, that last calculated strike. It wasn't revenge, it was liberation. You outgrew the version of you that needed their permission. And that's what chokes them. They called you crazy. They said you were lost. They said you didn't have what it takes. They bet on your silence, meaning weakness. But guess what? You were silent because you were watching. You were quiet because you were building. You didn't post about it. You didn't brag. You delivered results like a phantom, came through like a ghost with purpose. And now you haunt them. Let them squirm, let them panic, let them try to rewrite history. You're not the same person they doubted. You're the version that grew teeth in the fire. And the thing that'll keep them up at night. They laughed. but you're the one laughing now. Not loud, not obnoxious, not seeking revenge, just walking forward, unstoppable, while they suffocate on what they thought they understood. Heh, ain't it beautiful? And the wildest part, they still check your page, still asking mutuals about you, acting like they don't care. But their whole feed's built around your silence. You became their main character, and you didn't even audition, like, how you gonna mock someone and obsess over them? That's not hate, that's heartbreak in denial. They didn't plan for this version of you, this version with receipts, with clarity, with no damn patience for fakes. This you that doesn't flinch, doesn't fold, doesn't feed their drama. You showed them what it looks like when someone heals dangerously well. You know what it really is? It's that you didn't just get up. You got up different. You got up with boundaries. You got up with eyes open. You got up knowing who you are and who's just noise. That's terrifying to people who only know how to control broken versions of others. They wanted you disoriented, apologizing, grateful for crumbs. But you learned how to cook without them. And when they came back with that fake check-in energy, that just wondering how you've been garbage, you didn't bite. You didn't explain your glow. You didn't owe them a damn tour through your progress. That silence, that mature surgical silence, that's what's eating them alive. 'Cause when they laugh, they expect you to perform. When they mock, they expect you to snap. But when you don't even blink, when you just level up and vanish, that's what does it. That's the final move they never planned for. Not rage, not tears, not breakdowns, just that cold, calm detachment. That look in your eyes like, nah, I'm not coming back to that level. And the funny thing is, they never understood how dangerous someone becomes when they finally stop needing to be understood. You don't crave their apology. You don't wait on closure. You became the closure. And that's what's clenching their chest every time they hear your name in rooms they thought they controlled. They underestimated the quiet ones, the patient ones, the ones who take L's in silence and build a Fing empire out of the ashes. You were supposed to be broken forever. You weren't supposed to figure it out. You weren't supposed to be this powerful with no one beside you clapping. But here you are, breathing different, moving different, showing up like a plot twist and ruining their whole narrative. And they don't even hate you for it. They hate themselves for doubting you. And the thing is, you didn't even announce your comeback. No grand reveal, no corny captions, no need to prove anything. You just switched frequencies. One day they had access, next day they didn't. That's what's frying their circuits. They don't even know when they lost you, just that they did. You moved in silence like a real one, like someone who got tired of explaining their worth to people who only listen when you're begging. They thought they had time. Time to laugh a little longer. Time to see you struggle some more. Time to keep you boxed in while they played pretend. But you weren't wasting time. You were loading new software, upgrading quietly. And now they're stuck running on expired versions of who you used to be. They can't keep up because they never really knew you. They only knew the version that was trying to survive. The version that was bending, shrinking, trying to make it make sense in spaces built to drown you. But that version got tired. And tired people, when they finally rest, when they finally wake up, they start seeing things clearly. They start noticing who clapped when they were hurting, who smirked behind fake concern, who whispered, "They're not gonna make it," when you weren't in the room. And yeah, that shit cuts deep. It cuts so deep, it makes you walk different, talk different. Not harder, just realer. No fake smiles, no playing small, no waiting to be chosen. You became the one doing the choosing. You became the one they never thought you'd be. Unavailable. Unavailable to the drama. Unavailable to the fake check-ins. Unavailable to being someone's side story while they live like they're the main plot. You stopped performing for people who never deserved front row seats. And what really stings for them is that you don't even hate them. You're just done. Not loud, not messy, not bitter. Just done. And they have no idea what to do with that. Because when you're done without announcing it, that's when it hits the hardest. They keep refreshing the drama, waiting for a reaction that'll never come. Checking if you'll crack, if you'll post something, if you'll slip back into that old role. The version of you that cared too much and gave too quick. But you're not that person anymore. You're not holding space for people who showed up just to drain it. You're not handing out explanations to people who already made up their mind about you. It's wild how they still think they've got a seat at your table when they watched you starve and kept eating. Like, you remember that, right? You remember when they saw you drowning and didn't even throw a rope, just pointed and laughed from dry land. And now they're looking at you like, damn, you switched up. Nah, you just woke up. You stopped expecting loyalty from people who don't even know how to be real with themselves. You stopped trying to heal in environments that kept cutting you. You learned how to sit with yourself. You learned how to be your own damn home when every door around you slammed shut. And yeah, it was ugly. There were nights you wanted to disappear. Nights where the silence screamed louder than the chaos ever did. But you stayed. You didn't run. You sat in that fire and built something out of it. And now you walk in rooms different. Not loud, not arrogant, just grounded. Like someone who knows what they've lost, what they've survived, and what they'll never accept again. And people feel that. They feel that shift in your presence. They feel that weight when you speak. They feel that mirror you hold up without saying a word. And it burns because they see themselves in it, and they don't like what's staring back. They feel the gap now, that space between who they assumed you were and who you really are. That's why they talk more. Why they exaggerate stories, spin the truth, scramble for control. Because your calmness exposes their chaos. Your silence turns the volume up on their guilt, your peace. It's disrespectful to their whole identity. The version of them that only made sense when you were beneath them. And it's not even that you changed too much. It's that they never actually saw you in the first place. They were too busy talking over you, too busy judging your rough edges without ever wondering why they were there. Too busy building a version of you that fit their narrative, their comfort zone, their fragile little ego. And you kept shrinking, kept bending yourself just to keep the peace, walking on eggshells like your truth was too heavy for their ears. But the minute you stopped contorting yourself into what made them feel tall, the whole illusion shattered. And it's crazy, 'cause they call it you acting different. But really, you're just not bleeding for cheap validation anymore. You're not faking laughs, not swallowing pain to make the room comfortable. You're not begging to be chosen by people who can't even hold space for themselves. You're not performing, you're just being. And that scares them, because if you could rise like that after what they did, if you could smile again without their approval, build without their help, thrive without their cosign, then what does that say about them? That they were never needed, that their role in your life wasn't pivotal, it was optional, that they were part of the lesson but not part of the legacy. You pulled your energy back, and it felt like punishment to them. You didn't lash out, didn't post subs, didn't try to win them over with proof. You just went ghost. And that silence, that absence, it's been loud as hell ever since. Because nothing haunts people more than the version of you they can't reach anymore. Not because you're above them, but because you're not available to be drained again. That access they took for granted, yeah, that expired. No tantrum, no memo. Just gone. And they'll scroll through your wins like they're just coincidences, trying to convince themselves you got lucky. Nah, you earned that glow. You crawled through nights that almost took you out and still showed up for yourself when no one else would. That strength didn't come from claps. It came from crying in silence and still getting up with no one watching. You became your own savior, and they can't process that. 'Cause it means they were never the main character in your story. Just background noise with main character delusions. You weren't built for their storyline anyway. You were just passing through it while they tried to write you in as comic relief. The broken one, the naive one, the one who almost made it. But, guess what? You ripped up that script and walked off set. Started directing your own shit, and suddenly they don't recognize the role you're playing because it's not theirs to label anymore. And that's what's got them rattled. They thought you'd always need them. Thought you'd always be reachable. Always be waiting with that open heart and those tired eyes just hoping they'd finally show up right. But you stopped answering questions you already know the answers to. You stopped sitting at tables where your name only came up as a joke. You stopped watering dead plants. Stopped feeding connections that only came alive when you were suffering. It's not even about cutting people off. You just outgrew the version of yourself that tolerated being misunderstood for the sake of fake peace. You stopped editing your personality just to be digestible to people choking on their own insecurity. You let the silence do the heavy lifting. You let the distance speak your boundaries loud and clear. They keep replaying old scenes in their head, trying to figure out where it all flipped, where you slipped through their fingers. But there was no single moment. It was gradual. It was every eye roll you ignored, every condescending laugh you swallowed, every dismissive comment you let slide while telling yourself, maybe they don't mean it like that. Until one day you just didn't care anymore. You weren't even mad. You were done playing small, done explaining your depth to shallow people, done overgiving to hands that only reach out when they need to feed their ego. And they hate that you're unbothered, hate that you don't even speak on it, because silence makes people sit with themselves. It makes them face the mirror you walked away from, the one they used to blame you for cracking, when it was always their own reflection making them flinch. And it's wild, right? Like they never expected to be the villain in your story. They always saw themselves as the misunderstood hero, the one who meant well, the one who was just being honest, whatever that means. But, honesty without empathy. That's just cruelty dressed up in fake wisdom. And you took that for way too long. You let them laugh in your face while you were trying to figure out how to keep breathing through the weight they were casually dumping on your chest. And still, you didn't break like they hoped. You didn't snap. You didn't turn into the wreck they were quietly betting on. Instead, you turned every breakdown into blueprint, every scar into signal. You stopped arguing with people committed to misunderstanding you, and you started listening to that quiet voice inside that had been whispering, "You're meant for more." You started walking different, And not in some fake confidence way, in that I've seen hell and made it back kind of way, in that I don't flinch at shade anymore, I've lived in darkness kind of way. And they feel it when you enter a room. They feel that weight, that stillness, that presence that comes from surviving shit you never even spoke about. They laugh less now. They watch more. And not 'cause they're proud, it's 'cause they're confused. They don't know how someone they once pitied just became the standard they can't touch. How someone they thought they broke just became the blueprint for resilience. You don't post your pain anymore. You don't explain your distance. You just move with clarity, and that unnerves people who only felt powerful when you were unsure of yourself. They miss the version of you that was easy to manipulate. The version that second-guessed everything. The one that stayed quiet to avoid conflict while choking on their disrespect. But that version got buried with every fake laugh you forced and every time you said, "It's fine," while bleeding internally. You're not angry, you're aware. You're not distant, you're discerning. You're not bitter, you're just done loaning grace to people who spend it carelessly. And the silence hits different when it's not empty, but earned. You didn't go quiet 'cause you had nothing to say. You went quiet 'cause you realized it wasn't worth saying it to them. You stopped giving full access to people who only showed up when they needed to download from your energy. You started filtering the room, started watching how folks move when they think you're not useful anymore. And yeah, it stung at first, watching people you would have set yourself on fire for barely light a match when you were freezing. But after a while you stop expecting warmth from cold hearts. You peeped the patterns, the selective loyalty, the way they disappeared when your name wasn't trending in their little circles, the way they switched up when being connected to you wasn't boosting their ego anymore. You started seeing through the smiles, how some of them curved just a little too smug when you were slipping, how they clapped, but it never reached their eyes, how the jokes were never just jokes. It's like the whole time you were showing love, they were taking notes on your weaknesses, and you sat with that. You processed it without lashing out, without turning bitter, without becoming what tried to break you. You turned inward. You leveled up in private. You stopped explaining your worth and started embodying it. And that shift? It wasn't loud. It was subtle, like a locked door they used to have the key to. And one day, it just didn't open anymore. They're not mad at the glow-up. They're mad that they can't reach it, that they can't text their way back in, can't guilt you, can't gaslight you, can't play the "you've changed" card when really you just stopped letting them rehearse their toxicity on your soul. You're not the one they remember, and that's the scariest part. You've got that calm stare now, that unshakable posture, that whole aura of someone who doesn't flinch anymore when people leave, 'cause you finally know what staying true to yourself feels like, and they can feel that from across the room. They feel the distance, even in your silence. They feel the weight of what it means to lose access to someone who only ever showed them grace. And it's not even about revenge, it's about reclamation. You reclaimed your time, your energy, your voice, all that stuff you used to hand out like candy just to feel seen. You stopped bleeding for people who wouldn't even hand you a damn bandage. You stopped explaining your softness to people who mistook it for weakness. You started realizing that peace wasn't some luxury. It was your birthright, and you'd been handing it away to chaos just to feel included. It's crazy how quiet your world got once you stopped entertaining the noise. Like The second you stopped picking up calls from people who only rang your phone when their life was on fire, your air got lighter. You stopped walking into rooms just to dim yourself so others could shine comfortably in your shadow. Well, well, well. Look who's still standing. To all of you watching today, to the ones who've been called too much, too intense, too different, to the ones they mocked when you wept, laughed when you struggled, and doubted when you stayed silent. This one's for you. Let me ask you something. Have you ever been so underestimated that they didn't even bother to watch your hands move in the dark? They thought you were weak, when in reality, you were wired to explode, not with violence, but with purpose. See, what they don't know is that God doesn't decorate the obvious. He anoints the overlooked, and you, my dear, you were touched by something not of this world. They regret it now, don't they? Oh, yes, they feel it. That burning ache in the chest when they see you rise. That twisted stomach pain when your name comes up in rooms you haven't even walked in yet. That regret. That choking, searing, suffocating regret. Knowing they had a front row seat to divinity and thought it was just another show. You see, you weren't ordinary. You weren't meant to blend in. You weren't sent here to be liked. You were sent here to frighten the darkness. They tried to curse you, but the curses bounced. They tried to bury you, but all they did was plant you. And now they wake up at night, sweating, hallucinating shadows of you, hearing your voice in their head because you left a mark too deep for the soul to erase. Oh, they're in regret, all right. But let me tell you something darker. Their regret is just the beginning, because God didn't just bless you with favor. He laced your soul with fire. He embedded a code into your spirit, a frequency that heaven responds to, and hell fears. That's right. You're not just protected. You're not just chosen. You're feared by the very thing they tried to use to destroy you. Let me paint it for you. The enemy came looking for your weakness and ran headfirst into your anointing. Demons gathered and whispered your name, but they couldn't touch you, because the moment they reached for your soul, they saw the branding iron of the Most High. Mine and Satan. He doesn't touch what belongs to God, not because he's respectful, but because he's terrified of what will happen if he does. Oh, but the people, the ones who left you for dead, they thought they were done with you, blocked you, mocked you, betrayed you for likes, clout, or comfort. They didn't know you were under construction, and now the comeback is so loud, so undeniable, so divinely orchestrated that they're choking on their own silence. They don't congratulate you, they study you. They don't reach out, they watch from fake pages, because even they can't deny the glow. They don't regret losing you, they regret mishandling the prophecy. And you don't walk like them anymore. You move different. You carry storms in your silence now. Because when you've been built in betrayal, strength becomes your default. They tried to break you, but every time they hit you, you evolved. You stopped explaining yourself. You stopped begging. You stopped shrinking. You finally realized they hated you, not because of your flaws, but because of your function, because your presence exposed their fraud. Your light revealed their shadows. Your resilience made their excuses look pitiful. And that terrified them. Now they're scared, and they should be. Because when God marks you, the war doesn't stop, but the outcome becomes unshakable. He didn't make you soft. He made you sharp. Not cute, not passive, but cutthroat for the kingdom. You're not called to make everyone feel safe. You're called to make the enemy feel unsafe. So when they ask why you're glowing, why you're rising, why you're untouchable, tell them this: I was forged in a furnace you wouldn't survive. I was kissed by God and feared by hell. I'm not coming back for revenge. I'm coming back to collect what was always mine. They regret it now, but they can't rewind it. You've already crossed over, and the moment you did, you became a walking prophecy with vengeance in your veins. So let them talk, let them lie, let them regret, because regret is their prison. But you were born for resurrection. Regret. It's not just a feeling anymore. It's a torment, a daily replay in their mind. What if I didn't walk away? What if I didn't betray them? What if I believed in them before the world did? Too late. Because when someone is divinely assigned, they don't stay buried. They rise up through the soil, with roots wrapped around every betrayal and petals dripping with justice. You didn't just survive, you resurrected as a threat. But let's talk about what they don't see. Let's talk about the silence behind your eyes, the nights you stared at the ceiling and felt the heat of hell's breath on your neck, but never flinched. You were forged in spiritual isolation. While they were partying, you were pacing. While they were sleeping, you were screaming into pillows, fighting demons no one believed in. And when you begged God to take the pain away, He said no. Not because He didn't love you, but because He was building something even Satan didn't see coming. You were the decoy, the one no one thought would make it, the one they gossiped about in group chats, the one they humiliated when you were at your lowest, but while they laughed. Heaven was drafting a blueprint, not for your comfort, but for your domination. And now, here you are. Not perfect, not polished, but powerful beyond comprehension. You're not bitter, you're aware. You're not angry, you're activated. Because when you've been isolated long enough, you stop waiting for support, and you become the storm. Let me tell you what power really looks like. It's not the followers, it's not the money, it's not the applause. Power is waking up knowing people hate you, and walking in purpose anyway. Power is seeing who betrayed you, and not flinching. Power is being anointed so heavily that when people lie about you, their own life starts falling apart. That's not coincidence. That's spiritual recoil, because God don't play about you. You were hidden for a reason. He kept you low, so you could learn to hear Him, not them. And now that He's lifted the veil, now that the silence is over, you're not returning to the world the same. You're not here to be liked. You're not here to explain. You're here to dominate, to break bloodline curses, to silence demons by walking into the room, to make hell regret ever touching your name. You're not just chosen, you're a weapon, and weapons don't apologize for being sharp. They tried to end you, but what they didn't realize is that you were already eternal. Chosen ones don't die. They transition from naive to nuclear, from quiet to quantum, from abandoned to anointed beyond recognition. And now you carry something sacred, something ancient, something terrifying to darkness. The mark, that invisible flame, that undeniable frequency that whispers to every room. This one belongs to God. Proceed with caution. So to those in regret, let them drown in it. You didn't come back to be their savior. You came back to build your throne from the ashes they left you in. And while they scroll in silence watching your rise, just know they didn't lose a person. They lost access to a prophecy, and prophecies don't beg. They burn, they rise, and eventually they rule. Om. But see, this is the part they never saw coming. You went quiet, and they thought they won. You didn't clap back. You didn't expose them. You didn't try to clear your name. You just disappeared. And that was their biggest mistake. Because when a chosen one goes silent, heaven gets loud. Let me make something very clear. You're not one of them. You're not a follower. You're not a seeker of crumbs or a pleaser of crowds. You were born royal but raised in ruins. So you'd learn to build your crown from bone and betrayal. That's why your silence hurts them now. It's not just absence, it's judgment. They feel it in the awkward scroll when your face pops up. In the moment of stillness when your name is whispered but no one dares speak truth. In the way their spirit shudders when they think about what you've become. You're not loud anymore. Because when you're a king in spirit, you let the silence do the killing. You're not just feared by people now. You're feared by systems, by structures, by spiritual forces that were assigned to keep you bound. But you slipped through the cracks, didn't you? They sent betrayal. You learned loyalty. They sent isolation. You learned clarity. They sent abandonment. You met God face to face. So now you don't speak from pain. You speak from power. And the ones who once sat high over you, they're choking on the dust of your footsteps. Let's talk about that throne, shall we? Oh, it's not made of gold. Not yet. Right now it's made of scars, of every no one believed in you, every you're too much, every ghosted text, every fake hug, every backstab disguised as love. But here's the twist. God builds his kings in caves, not palaces, not platforms, but places where no one claps, where no one helps, where no one sees you, except heaven. And when he's done building, you don't come out with a smile, you come out with a sword. So now when they look at you, they don't know what they're seeing. Is it revenge? Is it wrath? Is it prophecy? Let me answer that for you. It's all three. You're walking divine vengeance. You're God's delayed judgment wrapped in flesh. You're what happens when fire meets favor and doesn't die from the smoke. And now, you don't need to prove anything. You are the proof. That the rejected rise, that the wounded win, that the forgotten become the flame. They regret it now, not because of what they did, but because it didn't work. They tried to kill your spirit, but all they did was awaken a version of you even the enemy wasn't ready for. So now, you move different. Because you're not just surviving anymore. You're reigning, and you're not coming down. They'll watch, they'll weep. They'll wish they had stayed loyal when it was cheap. Because now, access is expensive. And now, they're realizing something they never wanted to admit. You were the storm the whole time. You weren't caught in chaos. You were chaos, refined, disguised, and unleashed in silence. Let me tell you what's happening behind the scenes now. The very people who gossiped about you. They're losing sleep, the ones who laughed behind your back. They're being humbled in front of others. Because when God marks a soul, he marks the timeline around it. This is the part where everything flips, not because you screamed louder, but because the universe itself shifted in your favor. The wind changed, the waters moved, heaven rerouted entire realities, because one soul, yours, was chosen. And when you're chosen, favor breaks physics. Doors open that should be locked, opportunities knock with no resume, and enemies begin to fall, not by your hand, but by the divine order that protects you like a shadow. They wanted you to beg, but now they're the ones hoping for mercy. They wanted you to chase, but now they're stalking in silence, praying you don't remember what they did. But you do remember. Oh, you remember everything. But here's the twist. You're not out for revenge. You're out for dominion. Because when a marked soul rises, it doesn't settle for payback. It builds empires where blood was spilled. You want to talk supernatural confirmation? Look at your life. You shouldn't be here. You shouldn't be standing. You shouldn't be this clear, this aware, this on fire. But you are. Because every attack, every betrayal, every loss was prepaid fuel for this moment. Heaven didn't forget. Hell didn't stop trying. But you became inevitable. And now, everything around you is shifting. Your silence is doing more than your words ever did. Because now, the throne doesn't need applause. It needs a witness. Let them see it. Let the ones who swore you'd never make it watch you walk in rooms they'll never be invited to. Let them taste the bitterness of their own betrayal. You don't need revenge, because divine order is savage. It lifts you publicly and crushes your enemies privately. They don't know why their plans are falling apart. They don't know why doors keep slamming shut. They don't know why their peace is shattered every time your name is mentioned. But you know, because God doesn't play about marked souls. You were sent here on assignment, and when a marked soul suffers, the heavens prepare a harvest of justice. This isn't karma, this is kingdom consequence. So now you rise, not loud, not flashy, but as prophecy in motion, your walk, warped in authority, your presence, carved in fire, your very existence, a death sentence to every lie spoken against you. You carry confirmation, and that confirmation speaks louder than any apology they'll never say. You were the one, you are the one. You will forever be the one. We now enter the cosmic plane, where heaven speaks in verdicts, angels record bloodlines, and God himself makes declarations your enemies can't undo. This is no longer motivation, this is a judgment pronounced in fire. Let's go higher, past the gossip, past the pain, past the broken friendships, the fake apologies, the secret betrayals. Let's step into the courtroom of heaven. Yes, there is one. You think your story's just about hurt feelings? No. Your life is evidence. And while they mocked you down here, heaven was building a case. You didn't see it, but every tear was recorded. Every lonely night, logged. Every time you didn't retaliate, documented and filed under righteous restraint. And every person who lifted their mouth against you, knowing full well who you were in spirit, was summoned by name. Because when God marks a soul, he doesn't just protect them on earth. He defends them in the spirit realm. You see, you thought you were forgotten, but you were actually being studied, surrounded, watched by angels in silence, while demons tried everything to unravel you. And the verdict? Not guilty, not broken, not forsaken, but anointed beyond human jurisdiction. And that, right there, is why nothing they did worked. Because your name was already stamped on scrolls before the first betrayal was even planned. You were known before you were wounded, approved before you were accused, crowned before they cast you out. Now let's speak plainly. This is your official warning to the Watchers. Yes, you, the ones still lurking, the ones who said they moved on, but still search for updates, the ones who broke them, then waited to see if they'd ever recover. You didn't just underestimate them. You mocked God's decision. You spat on his choice. You interfered with a prophecy. And now, you're witnessing what happens when you touch the sacred without clearance. Because this isn't a comeback anymore. This is God showing off. He let them fall in silence. So when he raised you, no one could take credit. Not the pastor, not the parent, not the ex, not the platform. Only God. And that's why this rise feels so cosmic. Because it is. You're no longer rising just for you. You're rising for every generation before you that never made it. You're rising for bloodlines. You're rising to rewrite the narrative. They wanted you weak. But instead, you became a walking sentence. Your life is the warning. Your silence is the thunder. Your presence is the prophecy fulfilled. And as heaven watches and hell trembles, you march forward now with a name that cannot be touched. Because God didn't just restore you, He rebranded you. Your pain is now your platform, your scars now your scepter, your rejection now your resume in the spirit. You were not overlooked, you were hidden for impact. You were never just fighting for yourself. No, this battle's been in motion for centuries. Look around you. The patterns, the cycles, the family wounds passed down like heirlooms. Poverty of mind, fear in the blood, shame in the silence. Addiction wearing your last name like a crown. And yet, you snapped it. Not because you were the strongest, but because you were the first one crazy enough to say, "It ends with me." You didn't just wake up chosen. You were assigned to break what others bowed to, assigned to walk roads no one survived, assigned to carry spiritual weight that would have crushed anyone else. And still, you kept moving, even when your knees buckled, even when the room was full and you felt alone, even when the devil tried to convince you that death would be easier than destiny. You didn't just resist, you rewired your bloodline. Let me make this painfully clear. There were demons assigned to your last name, spirits that thought they had a right to your future. Generational contracts signed in silence long before you were born. But then you showed up, wounded, weary, shaking, but carrying fire. And when they saw you rise in full awareness of who you are, they didn't attack. They backed off. Why? Because now, you're so marked that even Satan has to get clearance to observe you, not touch you, not tempt you, just to look in your direction. He needs permission. You are off limits, sanctified by experience, armored by pain, crowned through survival. And now, every step you take sends shockwaves through hell's infrastructure. Because your rise doesn't just elevate you, it drags your whole bloodline into redemption. Those before you, they fought and fell. You fought and broke through. You are the one survivor of a war no one else could see. You are the proof that God answers in bloodline redemption. So now, every move you make, it echoes. You don't walk. You march with the ghosts of your ancestors watching. You don't speak. You declare what no one before you could say. They were silenced. You are the voice. They were broken. You are the rebuild. They were buried. You are the breath that rose from their bones. You didn't just survive the curse. You became the curse to the curse. You are unrecognizable now. Not to people, to principalities. The same spirits that haunted your family for generations. They whimper when your name is mentioned in spirit. They recoil when you pray. They scatter when you speak in authority. Because you carry the power of every generation that was silenced. You carry the roar of the ones who never got to scream. And now, they watch from a distance. Old friends, old enemies, even darker spirits. Because your atmosphere has changed. You don't need protection anymore. You are protection for everyone connected to your legacy. You don't need to find light. You burn with a flame that doesn't go out. And when you walk now, the heavens part, and hell shuts up. This is the eruption. This is not survival. This is not healing. This is not rising. This is when the marked soul stands fully revealed, crowned in fire, cloaked in divine wrath, and finally, speaking the words the world feared you'd never remember. I am the answer they prayed would never rise. So here you are, Not broken, not shaking, but standing still, in full authority, with the thunder of heaven sleeping in your lungs. You didn't just make it through the fire, you became the fire. And now, you're no longer explaining, no longer proving, no longer giving access to those who once handled you like you were disposable, because something in you has snapped into place, the full weight of who you are. Let me say it plainly for the cowards in the back, for the enemies still watching through silent screens and fake smiles. You are no longer the underdog. You are no longer the underestimated. You are no longer the maybe one day story. You are prophecy fulfilled. The threat wasn't that you'd survive. The threat was that you'd remember who you were and step into it with no apology. And now the throne is yours. No, not a literal throne, not a castle, but something more terrifying. Authority, true spiritual authority. You don't have to speak. They can feel it when you enter a room. You don't need revenge. Your silence is a sentence. Your breath is a blade. Your name, it shakes loose ceilings they built to keep you down. You were always the answer.